Hey everyone, it's Braulio Rosa with the Broward County Bar Association's Broward Bar Buzz, the place where you learn about all things legal in Broward County. Today I'm here honored to have Judge Kathleen McHugh with us. Judge McHugh, welcome.
Thank you. It's my honor to be here. I really was glad to come today to discuss my experience as a judge and how I got here, and I thank you very much for having me here today.
Well, let's roll into it. In reading your CV, I see that you're a native born in Southwest Ranches, or at least you grew up there. Correct. On a farm. Can you talk a little bit about that, growing
Sure.
up as a kid?
I was actually born in Miami, but when I was 2 weeks old, my family moved to Southwest Ranches. We grew up about 5 miles from the Everglades. When we moved here in 1968, Griffin Road was a dirt road. So if you can imagine, it's now like a 6-lane highway.
Yeah.
But my father owned an agricultural supply company called the Country Western Store. And he was a major supplier, not just of the surrounding ranches, but also of the racetracks. So I grew up on a 10-acre farm. We had like 20 cows, chickens, horses, dogs, and there was a lot of work to do out there. So it was a great upbringing to grow up there in Southwest Ranches.
You learned that hard work could pay off. And here's the question. Did you get your cowboy boots from Griff's back then?
No, Griff's is the enemy. They were on Orange Drive. And every time I ever tell anybody that my dad owned Country Western Store, they're like, oh, yeah, I know where that is. It's Griff's. It's on Orange Drive. And I'm like, no, my dad's store was Country Western Store. It was the store with the cowboy on the roof.
Oh, I love it.
The outlaw bikers back in the day, it was half saloon and then half agricultural company.
Wow.
So on the left side was the bar. And the outlaw bikers used to come and drink there, and they'd get drunk and they'd come outside and they'd shoot the cowboy on the roof.
Really?
And so my dad used to have to kick them out, and when he would kick them out, they'd get upset and they'd come back with chainsaws and cut the poles on the front patio, and the whole patio would fall down. So it was like the Wild West back then in Davie.
Oh, my God.
And my dad was such an icon back then for Davie.
I'd love to see pictures at some point.
Yeah, I have. It's actually on my website. You can see it.
I'll take a look at that. So you started off as a country girl,
Correct.
Farm,
Right?
working on a farm, running a farm,
Yep.
Family farm. What made you suddenly become interested in law?
I love human behavior. I was always fascinated by human behavior. I was a psychology major at first. And then I switched to criminology when I went to FSU. I didn't want a job that was going to be boring. I wanted something that was going to be intellectually stimulating.
Right.
And I find people fascinating, why they do what they do, why they have done, especially crimes. I always wondered what makes people tick. So that's a little bit of the reason why I decided to go into law, because I'm fascinated by people.
So I guess you were a fan of movies that where you had to figure out who done it. That
Exactly.
Sort of thing.
I watch all the crime documentaries. I watch the ID channel. I watch Dateline. I can't tell you. I've probably seen, I'm not all the episodes, but I've seen probably half the episodes. So yeah, I'm definitely a crime documentary fan.
Awesome. So you end up graduating from FSU, criminology degree?
Yes. Yes.
And then you go to NSU Law.
Correct.
For your law degree. And you end up in the public defender's office.
Right. I was a Broward County assistant public defender under Al Schreiber. I don't know if you remember Al Schreiber or not. He was my first boss.
I do.
Yeah. So I was there from 1995 until 1998. And the first year I was there, I was awarded Misdemeanor Trial Attorney of the Year for the highest number of jury trials in 1 year. I think that speaks to my work ethic. I had 32 trials in 1 year, and sometimes we try these cases back to back. So it was a lot of hard work, but it was all very interesting. I was actually the very first public defender assigned to the Domestic Violence Division the year that it was created in 1995. So that was a problem-solving court. There's other problem-solving courts since then, like mental health court and drug court, veterans court. But it was the very first problem-solving court in Broward County, and it was created in 1995. And I was the first PD ever in the division, and Ron Rothschild was the judge assigned. So I learned my trial skills from Ron Rothschild, and anybody that's ever worked with Ron Rothschild knows what a gentleman he is.
Yeah.
So I try to pattern myself as a judge after him, because he's so gracious and courteous and kind to everybody that's how I model myself after him.
So how do you deal with, defending individuals, legally, constitutionally, it's their right to be defended, and they're innocent, right, until proven guilty. But often these are difficult situations. I would guess. How do you prepare yourself psychologically, or did back then, to defend individuals like this?
It was a very challenging job because more often than not there was a lot of evidence against the defendant. Hence, that's why they were arrested and charged. But generally, I would never ask them if they did it or if they didn't do it. I would give them possible defenses. I could say, okay, we can say this didn't happen, or this was an accident, or yes, it did happen and you were acting in self-defense, or you had some justification for it. Now, why don't you go ahead and tell me what happened? And then
oh, I'm sorry.
I would lay out all the possible defenses to them, rather than just asking them.
She got me mad and I did it.
Right. Did you? I would never ask them, did you do it? I would say, okay, these are your possible defenses, and then go ahead and tell me what happened. And that way, because if they told me that they did it, and if they wanted to testify and then maybe say something different, I'd have an ethical problem with that.
Right.
So I wanted to inform them of all the possibilities, all the legal possibilities that they had, and then from there they could, I guess, pick their best defense and tell me which way we were going to go with it.
So you tried close to 100 cases there in the public defender's office?
When I was in private practice,
Also.
I probably, in the PD's office, I probably had, we did a lot of trial work there. We were on trial a lot, probably 60 or 70.
Wow.
And then I was in private practice for 15 years, and that's when I got the balance of my
Tell us a little bit
done.
about your private practice.
Yeah, I went into private practice in 1998, and I did civil and criminal. I did some business and commercial litigation. I did a few divorces, which I didn't really care for all too much. I did juvenile dependency, juvenile delinquency, and criminal defense. So I did a little bit of everything for 15 years.
All right, so you work at the public defender's office for 3 years, and then you have your own practice for 15 years, so you become a seasoned attorney. At this point, what motivates you to transition from being a lawyer to running for a judge? Because you ran the first time around.
Correct. Yeah, I ran in 2012, and the good Lord willing, I won in 2012. And I think the reason why is because I realized after 18 years, 3 years working for the government, 15 years in private practice, I'd seen both sides. I've been in the trenches. I have a lot of experience now. I've tried over 100 jury trials at this point, ranging from misdemeanors to murder cases. I'm like, wow, I'm almost 40 years old now. I've got a lot to give back. I've done public service work in the public defender's office. I've done public service work in private practice as well. I'm ready to give back and to take this knowledge to the bench, take this skill set that I have to the bench, because I've seen both sides. And with that, I worked really hard in 2012. I had a very formidable opponent. Nobody thought I could win. Nobody knew who I was. And I worked really hard, and the people of Broward County honored me with this job.
So you've been a judge now since 2012.
Correct.
And you ran unopposed one time.
That was in 2018.
Right.
I didn't have opposition. So.
And so can you tell us about, in that time frame, your tenure of being a judge?
Sure.
What's the best part of being a judge? What do you enjoy about it?
I love being in trial. I love presiding over the dramas. I love being able to orchestrate all the parties, orchestrate the witnesses, orchestrate the jury, balance everybody's interests to get a fair result. I love to see how the trial will play out, because I would have read if it was a criminal case, I would have read the police report beforehand, and I get a general feeling of what the case is going to be about. But then when the witnesses come in, they testify completely differently than what's in the police report. And I'm like, wow, that wasn't in the police report. So now we've got something different now. So I love to see how the witnesses interact with the jury. I like to see how the jurors respond to them. I like to see how the jurors respond to the lawyers, good lawyering, bad lawyering. Because you could have, lawyers that are really intelligent and smart, but they're not necessarily good trial lawyers. And you can have the opposite as well. I think trial lawyering is a natural skill. It's something that is innate. I don't think it can necessarily be taught. Some lawyers have that natural ability. It's almost like sales and marketing. I mean, you have to be a good salesman and sell the story to the jury. And if they like you enough, they're going to buy it. And if they don't like you, then they're probably not going to buy it.
So, as a judge, have you done any mentorship of lawyers helping or law students, that sort of thing?
Yeah. When I was first elected the first few years, Nova Law School would have interns come, and I would have them either come sit with me on the bench, or they can come back into my chambers, and I'd ask them to research, certain legal issues that I may have before me. So yeah, I have dealt with judicial interns through Nova. We would get we get the summer interns, so they have the opportunity to see what it's like back in chambers, and then also to see me in court as well.
I would think, since you're saying it's an innate skill, that might be, maybe you could never be as great as someone who's naturally at being a trial lawyer, but maybe by being a law student and being an intern with a judge, you can see some of the better trial lawyers, and maybe some of that will rub off you.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we've lost some of that since we've had Zoom, since the lawyers aren't there in court anymore watching each other try cases or argue motions. Zoom definitely is helpful, but I'm hoping that as the young lawyers come up, that they're going to find a way to learn from the older lawyers. Because I know that when I would sit in court next to, seasoned lawyers and watch them argue motions, I learned so much. Just being in the same room with them, and they answer my questions. I could bounce my cases off them. Hey, I've got this problem. What would you do? And you lose that with Zoom. It's super practical and super convenient. So I wish there was like a happy medium where the younger lawyers could learn from their older colleagues.
There is a void in that. I've heard from a lot of senior attorneys talking about, boy, it's hard because my associates, they want to work from home, but that's a whole nother. The lack of being in the office and learning from being with those senior lawyers is something that's probably hurting the practice.
True. And I think you lose that human interaction when you can't sit next to someone and talk to them and look them in the eye and ask them how they're doing and what's going on.
Yeah.
Can't do that on Zoom, really. So it's unfortunate, but it's also so convenient to be on Zoom as well.
It is.
You save a lot of money in gas and wear and tear on your car and whatnot.
Facilitates your docket. You're able to get to all the...
absolutely.
Get through all those cases.
So, yeah.
So how do you, as a judge, you're obviously going to deal with difficult days, difficult lawyers, or just whatever it may be. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a walk in the park. That's why they're seeing a judge. There's an argument. How do you deal with those difficult days where sometimes you're just like, because it's human, right? It's human nature.
Right. My mantra is, my philosophy is, never make a decision when you're angry, because it's always going to be the wrong decision. So I'll either take a break, I'll maybe call another judge and say, look, I got this situation, tell me what you would do. Would you handle it this way? Would you handle it that way? So I've done that as well. But off the bench, dealing with stressful cases, stressful litigants, I'm a big fan of exercise. I try and stay active. I do cardio, some weight training, yoga, meditation. And I was telling you before, I just got my purple belt in jiu-jitsu. So that's a great stress reliever to be able to throw people around. So I'm really proud of the fact that after 4 years of training, I just got certified.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I work out, so it's a good way for me to de-stress.
And I think every woman should know how to defend herself.
I agree. Your daughter, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. So if you could go back in time, if you could bring anyone from the past, actually, no, I'm not going to ask you that. I'm going to ask you if there was going to be a biopic about Judge Kathleen McHugh, what actor would portray you?
Oh, Probably Tia Leone from Madam Secretary.
Okay.
Madam Secretary. Well, people say I don't know if I look like her now, but when my hair was straighter, people told me that I looked like Madam Secretary. I'm like, wow, she's beautiful. I think that's great. So
I didn't even prep you on that question.
no,
That was good. I love it.
yeah.
So, Judge, any parting thoughts, something you'd like to convey to our audience about yourself and your service for community?
Well, I've been on the board of directors for the Lighthouse of Broward for the last 6 years. And for those of you who don't know what the Lighthouse does, it's a nonprofit organization that serves the blind and visually impaired adults and children in the community. And they connect them with services to help them live productive lives. So I think that's very important as a judge to have outreach to organizations such as the Lighthouse, so that they can see that other people recognize them and are there for them and trying to help them.
Judge, thank you for your service in the legal side as well as to the community at large.
Very good, and thank you for having me.